Thank you. Hi. Before we begin, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. And even though we just did it with Kathy's talk, I'd like you to be invited to recenter ourselves. On the count of 3, everyone in the room take a very long and deep breath, okay? 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. Now, tonight's talk is all about the invisible forces in the air that's around us, unseen to the human eye, but having an everlasting impact. Now, yeah, I was going to say it's not changing. But with that in mind, I would like to bring up one of those topics that I believe is especially prevalent in today's society, the concept of the soul. Now, when we discuss the soul in the past, historians, theologians, and scholars have tried to find a way to connect breathing and the soul. In the past, we have seen it dates back as far as the ancient Greeks, who had a name, pneuma, with a P, which literally translates to the breath of life. Scientists have tried to quantitatively define and measure this concept. So, with all that out of the way, and in line with our discussion tonight, I believe there's a much simpler definition that, for the time being, we can all agree on. The soul is the very air we breathe. It is the act of respiration as we take oxygen into our body and it is sent through our blood to power every part of us. We cannot function without breathing, so what's more alive than being able to breathe? Now, for people who suffer from mental illness, this act of respiration is interrupted. It's no longer a necessary function and sometimes a reminder of the human condition, but instead, for us, it is a reminder of what we lack. Now, I say us because I am included in this population. When I was 16, I was diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder. So let's get all the questions out of the way, going through your head. Yes, I wash my hands a lot. No, I do not count a lot. I used to when I was young. No, I don't drive home to double-check the stove, but I do triple-check my paperwork. And no, much to my roommate's detriment, I am absolutely not clean nor organized. In all seriousness, though, it is a struggle. When discussing mental health, we tend to talk about the physical components that can be seen, that can be measured. But we don't look at the parts that aren't seen. The invisible truth. For example, intrusive thoughts are not controllable. It's in the name, intrusive. They are neurochemical reactions inside of your brain firing off every millisecond with the strength of a cannon, uncontrolled like a Gatling gun. Except instead of gunpowder and ammunition, it's nerve signals being sent through your synapses. Now, this concept is fairly well understood in the field of psychology because you can measure that. You can see compulsions. You can hear obsessions. But you can't hear guilt. You can't see the thoughts that race through your brain, the violent and impulsive thoughts that are uncontrollable. Now, one thing that I find absolutely necessary when talking about this is that everyone understands intrusive thoughts sneak into your brain. They pretend to be you. You think that they are you. It's like having someone in the passenger seat, holding onto the wheel and hijacking, trying to take a new turn at every opportunity. But there is no one else there. So, who else in my mind is imagining vividly my girlfriend dying in a car crash, or my father slowly passing away from cancer, but me? You begin to internalize it. You begin to believe that you are the problem, and eventually you find that there is something wrong with you, with your soul that is corrupted and beyond evil, and you deserve to die for your transgressions. I thought that when I was 8 years old. Another thing that I tend to have issues with are anxiety attacks. This especially occurred when I was in high school. There's a movie that has the best description of an anxiety attack that I've seen to date. In it, the main character, who is played by the wonderful 25-year-old loving woman, or man, he plays a man with OCD. And in it, he says a phrase, a simple phrase, "Show me all the blueprints." But the phrase isn't said quite right in his mind, and he begins to obsess. Show me all the blueprints. His heart races, and he loses his mind. He starts to spiral. Show me all the blueprints. He forgets how to breathe, and he starts to begin to hyperventilate. Show me all the blueprints. He receives as his skin crawls, and eventually he writhes in shame. Show me all the blueprints. I used to experience anxiety attacks in the exact same way. It is exhausting. It is mentally draining, and you feel worthless after the fact. I used to come home from school barely able to function, and all I could do was just try to smile through it. Like that had any effect. But there is a good ending to this story, I promise. One day, when I was in high school, I decided I had enough. I texted my parents and I said I had something I wanted to talk about. I gave myself time to mentally prepare, and then when I got to them, I opened up about everything. You know when you shake a bottle of soda and it just goes... It was like that. It was emotional, vulnerable, and absolutely terrifying. I sat there waiting for my parents to tell me that I was wrong, that somehow I had imagined it, and there was nothing wrong with me, but they didn't. They told me that they were there for me. They loved for me, they cared for me, and the next day I was on the phone speaking with a therapist. Through unconditional love and support from the ones around me, I managed to realize that I am not my intrusive thoughts. I am a human being with a soul, with a purpose. Now, I'd like to say that this is the case for everyone, but it's not. I just got incredibly lucky to have the people around me. In 2005, there was a national study conducted by a man named Robert Kessler. He went across the entirety of America and surveyed, asking about mental health history. When the dust settled, he found that 46.4% of Americans have a lifetime prevalence. That means from birth to death. At some point in their lives, they had some form of psychopathology. Let's take a moment. Let's unpack that. That is 46.4%. Almost half of America. Half of you in this room, at some point in your lives, will have some form of mental illness. And OCD only sits around 2.3%, estimated by modern people. Many of these people will not have access to resources. They won't know what it is to feel help. Hell, most of them won't even understand what's going on with them. They, like me, will blame themselves for things out of their control. Now, there's a lot of discussion about what we can do to help alleviate this. I'm going to bring up 2 points: accessibility and stigma. Let's start with the easier one to understand. Accessibility is arguably the hardest hurdle that people have to jump in order to receive help. If you are not in an area that has resources in the locality, or if you are in an insecure economic situation, it is very unlikely that you will be able to receive the help. The answer is simple, if not difficult to implement. We need to reallocate resources to vulnerable populations, people who need the help. We need to make sure that legislation has a larger emphasis on mental health awareness. We need to make sure that as many people understand legitimate issues. Resources need to be available and readily accessible to those who only need to ask. Simply put, we need to care and put more effort. But there's another issue that will not be ignored, unfortunately, and that is stigma. Many people believe that those who suffer from mental health have issues functioning in daily life. It can range from being a little disorganized and depressed to downright dangerous and psychotic. Now, we use strong words, words that have power, that identify people by their psychopathology. Words like the schizophrenic, or phrases like acting bipolar. We break people down until they are only their mental illness, which isolates them from everyone else around them. And then we act surprised when they don't have accessibility or the resources they need. By doing this, they are by themselves. We do not have the capacity to reach out because we believe that we are the problem. It took me the better part of 10 years to get out of that thought process. People looking from the outside in view this as, I'm not them, I'm better, I'm sane, as if it is a moral high ground to be healthy. The fastest way I know someone doesn't have OCD, by the way, is when they say something like, yeah, bro, I'm sorry, I have a little bit of OCD. You gotta excuse me. Which happens a decent amount. If people don't care, and if we don't put effort into the way we act, the way we word things, the way we phrase things, then I and the many people like me are no longer living beings with souls. We are statistics. 2.3%. A problem so insignificant, so minute, it is not worth the effort to fix it. If people did not care, who knows where I would be today? I'd like to end off on a much higher note. There's enough doom and gloom in this world for 100 lifetimes. As a trend, we have become better with mental health awareness. Resources are accessible through things like medication, through things like psychotherapy. We are seeing results. People are being diagnosed with the things that they need, and people are being helped. But this is only the beginning. If we want change, real change, we need to change the way we think and the way we act. We need to view people that are suffering from these mental illnesses not as inconsiderate problems in our lives, but instead as people. People with souls that are worth the decency and compassion it would take to help them. I stand here today asking you to alter your beliefs, to challenge them, to question the way that you react. And even through everything, I still remain cautiously hopeful for the future. Thank you very much.